Guess what? Sunday Sanctuary is produced by a non-profit, which makes perfect sense, right? And it's also quite fun because you never know where the money's going to come from. So this is your invitation to join that fun by supporting this kaupapa and helping to share something you love with even more people looking for soul-nourishing spiritual conversations. It's simple. You can choose between a one-off donation or become a regular supporter and help Sam and I keep making Sunday Sanctuary. To give now, head to our website, sundaysanctuary.nz. Kia ora, and thank you.
Maybe I can find my treasure. There's too much for me to do. Maybe I can find my treasure. Maybe my treasure rests in you.
Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
I ngā manu i ngā reo, mai ngā hau e whā, tatu mai nei ki te manga o tēnei rākau whakaruru hau. Tau mai nei ki tēnei kaupapa e pāpāhau atu nei ki a koutou a rā ko Sunday Sanctuary. Ko Petra Bagust tēnei, e rere ana ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa. To everyone from each corner of this country, come and rest on the branch of this shelter tree. You are welcome to this project, this space, Sunday Sanctuary. I'm Petra Bagust and I acknowledge you all. Now, our episode today is all about compassion. What even is compassion? As we've made this episode, it's been guided by the quote, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a covenant between equals. That's from Father Gregory Boyle's 2010 book, Tattoos on the Heart, The Power of Boundless Compassion. And in making this episode, producer Sam and I discovered more about the origin of this quote. So that's to come a little later. But another guiding light has been a book in the Bible. It's from the New Testament. It's called Matthew. And it's quoting a parable that Jesus is telling about people who helped others and people who didn't help others. You may have heard elements of it. A phrase like, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was homeless and you gave me a room. I was shivering and you gave me clothes. I was sick and you stopped by to visit. I was in prison and you came to me. And what happens there is the people who are listening to the parable say, Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or sick or in prison and come to you? Then the king will say, I'm telling the solemn truth. Whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it to me. And that's the Message translation of that parable. Another way of saying it is, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So this idea that we would make a practice of caring for people who perhaps don't deserve our care or compassion, that we would make an effort to give of ourselves or extend ourselves or help, support, love on, take compassion, be compassionate for other people, is this deeply Christ-like idea. Later in the episode, I'm going to chat with the positively wonderful Sister Margaret-Anne from the Order Sisters of Compassion in Wellington. I'm going to understand a bit about the founder of her order, Sister Merihohepa Susanna Auberg, and how the work of the Sisters of Compassion continues 100 years after Suzanne's death. But let's kick it off by talking to social worker Aaron Hendry. Alongside his wife, Summer, they started the Auckland-based charity Kickback. It supports homeless young people in the city. Tēnā koe, Aaron. Super to sit down with you because I've read your work. I've been fired up by your missives that are sent across the internet, but we've not met before, so it's lovely to meet you.
Yeah, kia ora. It's great to meet you.
With this episode on compassion, I think of you as somebody who might stir the pot, somebody who might lay out a bit of a wero, a challenge, somebody who wants people to activate and fire up. And yet here we are about to talk to you about compassion. So with that in mind, that's our horopaki, that's our context. Can you tell me a little bit about the work that you do? And then can we roll into your idea of compassion?
Yeah, kia ora. I'm really privileged to lead a kaupapa called Kickback, which is a youth development organisation that's responding to youth homelessness, and it's a kaupapa that my wife and I founded, and I guess it's very in line with this move of compassion, right? We met as youth workers ourselves in our local church in Massey, and really became confronted with the reality of youth homelessness in our community, and believed that something needed to be done. And the question, when you ask that question, is what can we do? And so it's been years in kind of the making, but Kickback is a space that focuses on responding to youth homelessness. We have a drop-in outreach centre on Key Road, which is a space for tamariki, for rangatahi to drop in, get access to clothing, food, navigation into housing services and whatever other support that they need. If you think of, what the Auckland City Mission does for our adult whānau, that's what we do for children and young people. Yeah.
Okay. How long's Kickback been going for?
Yeah, we started the journey in terms of developing the space in 2023. So, and then we opened the doors of the front door, the service on Key Road in 2024. So, yeah, we're pretty new, but it's been probably a lifetime in the making for both of us. Yeah.
What did you see? What did you see in terms of young people? You're there, you're kind of a social worker. What does youth homelessness look like?
Yeah, it's pretty distressing if you're honest, and confronting. I think youth homelessness kind of lifts the veil over a lot of what we think of ourselves as New Zealanders and as a society. It's in its most extreme, children sleeping outside in graveyards and on the street in bushes. It's young people couch surfing, not having like a stable place to live and moving from place to place over and over again. It's young people being forced to stay in really dangerous situations because they have nowhere else to go. A real confronting reality for us is that over 50% of all of our whānau that experience homelessness are children and young people, and likely because the data isn't that strong, it's probably much greater than that.
Wow, so you're saying, or I'm hearing you say, that homelessness is more prevalent in young people than it is in adults.
Yeah,
and they're also more vulnerable.
Yeah, it's definitely a real increased vulnerability if you're a child. I mean, you think about all the risks and harm that can happen to an adult living outside, sleeping rough, like it just magnifies when you're a child, right? And when you're a young person. And we've definitely been concerned about just the increase in children coming through our doors, and that's under 16, 15 and under. Some as young as 12 or 13 that have, been sleeping rough and had nowhere safe to live.
So what was it? And you didn't mention your wife. You and her met at church, and you both were like confronted or like fired up about this. What was it in yourself and in her? Talk me through that process of we've got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, we like I said, we met as doing youth work in our local church. We used to part of a small church called Massey Community Trust, Massey Community Church, sorry, and we used to have this program on Tuesday night called Break Free, which is just a space for young people in our community to come down and just talk about real life. And we built some really strong relationships with the young people in our community as a result of that. And there were some real key, I think, stories of young people that, as much as we could provide support as a community and care, the fact that they had nowhere safe to live was the biggest problem that we were dealing with. And at that time, there was no emergency housing. There was no youth housing services.
So this is years ago,
This was years ago. Yeah, this was back in, 2011, 2012, I think, back when we kind of first met. I probably got those dates wrong. I'm told off for that.
She'll forgive you.
Yeah, hopefully. And so someone I met kind of in this context, serving our community, serving our kids. And I think there was this one young person specifically that I think was really foundational for us. And, we'd done a bit of journeying with her, and she, ended up young, pregnant, alone, having to couch surf to find a place to live for a period of time, and trying to raise this baby by herself. And I think and we did what we could as a community, did what we could, but I think the confronting reality was that this could even happen in New Zealand society, that it could be a case that we had a young person who didn't have a safe place to live. And when you start thinking about that and you start thinking, well, surely there should be, it should be different than this, that I think really hit home. And so, yeah, I mean, I went on to kind of doing youth work as kind of my full-time role. I worked in a range of different places, and Tawananga, Youth Line, LifeWise, helped to design some of the first youth housing services at the time, and really looking at what can we do to respond to this. And one of the real key gaps that our young people continued to tell us was that, there was nowhere for when they were in crisis and they needed somewhere to go. That safe place that they could go to and get support. There was a huge gap. And I guess that's what prompted the Front Door and Kickback, was responding to the needs and the voices of our rangatahi.
Okay, so then you see the specific need that isn't being met by any agency or service and you think, we'll do this. Can you talk to me from a personal experience level, what does compassion mean to Aaron, to you?
Yeah. When I think of compassion, I guess my first thought is of solidarity, right? It's of being in relation with one another and being moved by the experiences of each other. And so when we think about our young people and our kids, we see them as our whānau, right? We see them as our kids. We think about what we would want for them, what we'd want for our own children, and that moves us to do what we can to care, to love, to support them as well. It's not as if there's two, a them and us. It's stepping into solidarity, stepping into community with one another, and being allowed to be touched by the suffering of each other.
Yeah, I like the fact that you brought in the word suffering there. Like, there is no separation between, healthy boundaries aside, we are allowed to exist and be well and be safe. Yeah, but that's what you're talking about. How do we live in community, exist and be well and be safe, and allow ourselves to be soft and be open, to be present to the suffering of other people, just as we would want them to be present to our suffering. Yeah. To be alone in suffering is it's a little bit devastating. Yeah. I think that what I'm hearing you say about compassion is that it's this openness and a softness and a receiving, and then it's a giving and a standing with and an activating. Yeah. Like, it's not super passive. Yeah. It can be super active.
Yeah, I definitely think that, right? So compassion, I think very similarly, I often talk about how love has legs, right? Yeah. It's similar with compassion. I think these two things sit together. If I truly have a love for you, and I've, opened my door to this relationship and am touched by your suffering, then I'm moved to act, because I feel that compassion, and so, I think those two things sit together.
Yeah. I think you're right. And would you say, like, if you were describing compassion, so we've got it now, it's active, is it angry? It's not angry, is it, compassion? Like, what's the texture of compassion?
Yeah, interesting question. Is there anger? I think there can be an anger where you see an injustice, right? Where you see someone that is hurting and hurt. There is anger there sometimes, right? Yeah. Is that the thing? I think probably the base fuel of compassion is love. I think that's where it sits. Yeah. But I think naming that sometimes you can feel anger is real and vulnerable, right, as well. I think it's impossible sometimes to see the injustices of this world and to see someone you love who is hurting and to understand why that is going on and not feel some form of anger. But I definitely think the texture or the feeling of compassion is fueled by love.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Yeah. What sustains compassion? Like, how do we keep going? Yeah. Because I sometimes feel like, if I'm if I'm giving it, even just as a parent, so you say basic level, as a parent, if you're just like pouring into your children or just doing, somehow things get tight and thin. So what would you say fuels compassion?
Yeah.
Or refuels compassion?
Yeah. I mean, a big, I guess, a core belief of mine is that love is the way, right? And that guides us, that directs us. In my faith, that love is exemplified through, the love of Christ, who is self-sacrificing and who, gives himself for others, right? So I think that is kind of the ground of which, fuels compassion. It's the thing that we stand on. But I think within this, there's other conversations as well. If you're asking that question of how do we continue to serve and care for people in really like hard and complex situations, then it's also recognizing that you need to be able to fill yourself up as well. And it's not about kind of fully emptying yourself to others, but also being able to be filled and ensuring that you have a strong support network around you as well. That you have other people that hold you if you're trying to hold others. I think those two things have to all sit together. Yeah.
It sounds good though, being held while you hold others. Sounds right. What sustains you? Like, there's an element of bravery here though. Like you're working, you're a young person, you see a need, and then you keep walking towards this. Does it feel like both kind of resonant or right in terms of goodness and brave to be doing the work you're doing?
Yeah, does it feel brave? Yeah, I mean it's not easy work, right? It's definitely hard. It's confronting. It's I think both, and I'm here, but the reason I'm here is very much through the sacrifices that Summer, my wife, has made, and our kids have made, and it's something that we've done as a whānau, right, to get here, and so. What keeps it going, I think, again, is that support, that recognising that actually no one changes the world alone, that actually we need one another, that we need community, that actually it's not all us. And, going back to that notion of solidarity before, that's not about me doing something for someone else who is poor and sad and, going through stuff. It's actually we are all working together to bring about a more just, inclusive world that we all want to live in, for my kids, for your kids, for all of us, right? And that's something that we as a community are doing. So our young people, our children, our tamariki that we serve, they're not people that we do things to. It's us doing this together. And that's real core to Kickback, is solidarity. It's actually the whole service has been designed with young people, alongside young people. They're very much an integral part of what we do every single day. And so it's recognising that actually it's not on my shoulders alone. It's on all of us as a community to stand with each other and to walk through this hard stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like compassion in action. Like it's a flowing in and I would say almost a flowing in and a flowing out, and infilling and an outfilling. And I hear what you're saying in terms of it's not this top-down thing where I as the adult tell you as the child, or I as the person with the purse strings, give to you who has no. It's this, how do we create community that is well, that is whole, that is, vibrantly able to give and receive, to support and stand with in solidarity one another. Yeah. Because at different times, everybody's going through something.
Absolutely. And when I think of our young people, they've taught me some of the bravest lessons about courage, about love, about sacrifice. Our young people who have some of the least in our society, the most generous. The way that our young people, when they have nothing, care for one another, stand up for one another. Support one another, even when that costs them. Themselves personally. I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn from our rangatahi, and it's definitely us together. Yeah.
Cool. How can we support you out of interest? Like, this is not where we're just going to talk about compassion, but how do people support Kickback?
Yeah. I mean, you can find us online, socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Just look at Kickback, Make Change. And if you're interested in supporting, whether we're always looking for both volunteers or financial support or whatever that is, just hit us up. I guess the biggest thing you can do to support, though, is just be more aware of what's going on around youth homelessness and the impacts it's having on our kids. And the big question I think always, when people ask that question, what can we do? Is look in your hands. Like, what do you have to give, and give that. Whether that's you as a person thinking, okay, well, I can get involved in this, or I can get involved in that, or you as a community thinking, okay, how can we respond? The only way we end youth homelessness in Aotearoa is if we all do our part, and it's something that we can end. We can build a society where all of our children, all of our young people have a safe place to live. That's totally possible, but it's going to take all of us as a community deciding that we've had enough of it and we want something better.
Awesome. I'm going to volunteer my husband, actually. And I just thought of something he can do.
Oh, kia ora.
Then I'll think of something that I can do.
Yeah, kia ora.
Aaron, kia ora. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed chatting with Aaron. He is doing good out of an overflow of love and compassion. I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? That's what he was talking about. But there's not this sense of, duty, or I'm worn down, or there's no end. There's a sense of, what have I got? What can I do? How can I do it? Let's do it. So I love that his compassion is humble, strong, and active. Coming up, I have a chat with Sister Margaret-Anne from Sisters of Compassion. She is a delight, and we'll have some reflections on this idea, this concept of compassion. Please send this episode to someone you think would love it, and leave us a review on your podcast player of choice. It's awesome when we get them. We are at Sunday Sanctuary NZ on Instagram if you'd like to join our online community.
Sunday Sanctuary with Petra Bagust.
So you don't know where you're going, but you wanna talk. And you feel like you're going where you've been before. You tell anyone to listen, but you feel ignored. And nothing's really making any sense at all. Let's talk, let's talk, let's talk, let's talk.
That was a little bit of The Way It's a Talk by Coldplay, because they have thoughtful, interesting things to say. I thought now we'd have a riff on compassion before we do a bit of reflection, and I've turned to a good friend of Sunday Sanctuary, Brené Brown, in the form of the book Atlas of the Heart, Mapping Meaningful Connection in the Language of Human Experience. And Chapter 7 is all about the places we go with others. And it investigates compassion, pity, empathy, sympathy, boundaries, and comparative suffering. But the point here is that compassion is something that we do in relationship to or with someone else. And Brené Brown's definition, which she has worked on and refined over a decade of research, is that compassion is a daily practice. It's something that recognises and accepts our shared humanity so that we treat ourselves and others with loving kindness, and we take action in the face of suffering. So that's her definition. This is something we do every day. And that it's different from empathy, because empathy is something that happens within the kaupapa of compassion. It's like a tool to practice compassion with. So notice here that compassion isn't just a feeling, it's a doing. And notice also what's missing. There's like no hierarchy in it. Compassion isn't saying, hi, I'm fine, here, let me help you. It's built on the understanding that all of us are made of both strength and struggle. Nobody is exempt from pain. Compassion is not a practice of better than. It's not about fixing someone. It's a practice grounded in the beauty and the ache of being human together. And this is where Brené Brown quotes American Buddhist nun Pema Chödrön from the book The Places That Scare You, published in 2001. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. She makes the point that it's only when we know our own darkness well that we can be present with the darkness of others. For her, and I quote, compassion becomes real when we recognise our shared humanity. So this quote here was taken nearly 10 years later by Father Gregory Boyle, who spent decades walking alongside gang members in Los Angeles through Homeboy Industries. And he picked up that thread and added an element. In Tattoos of My Heart, The Power of Boundless Compassion, he says, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a covenant between equals. Now, a relationship is how two people connect, and a covenant is a special kind of relationship. It's built on permanent, binding promises. Relationship can end when feelings fade, and this covenant concept is a promise to stay committed. It's something sacred and mutual, no one standing above anyone else. And I think that there's this extra energy Father Boyle is imputing this idea of compassion with, in claiming that we have this promise to one another to be compassionate, to bear each other's pain and be with each other in pain and in joy. And I love how Brene Brown says that this definition of compassion completely radicalised her parenting. She used to be a fixer. She used to flip on the lights, solve the problem, make the hurt disappear. But that as she sat with this concept of powerful, present compassion, when her kids struggled, she sat with them in the dark instead of solving. Presence, ability to hold the discomfort, to sit with it, not to rescue. And she said it never got easier. Every cell in her body still screamed, "Fix it!" But that her daily unglamorous practice of just being alongside someone is what she means when she talks about compassion. No grand gesture, but a covenant repeated one dark room at a time. And I think that's, a fascinating way of thinking. Can we bear with or be with people in their pain? And is that one expression of compassion? Perhaps now you take a moment to experience the idea of compassion, that there is someone to sit with you in all your difficulty. Or you could take a moment to think about someone in difficulty and feel compassion for them. What might that mean to you or to them, and how might you act?
Hey, producer Josh here, and I want to take a moment to reflect on the ancient practice of communion. Now, communion and compassion share an etymological root. The calm part at the beginning of calm passion goes back to the Latin prefix that simply means with. And when we use the word passion these days, we tend to think of something quite positive and exciting. You might have a real passion for your job, or for woodwork, or stamp collecting. Or you could even be swept up in a passionate romance. But the original Latin word pati actually meant to suffer or to endure. So the word calm passion is literally to suffer with. And it's true, isn't it? Our compassion usually costs us something. We encounter at least a taste of the suffering of others when we have compassion for them. And when someone joins us in our suffering, it doesn't remove it, but it can help to transform it. The final meal Jesus had with his friends before his execution became a profound act of compassion, of suffering with. He held up bread and wine and said, "This is my body. This is my blood, broken and poured out for others." Now, the Christian faith maintains this was not just a clever rabbi with some special powers, but was God himself become human in order to suffer with his creation. So when we take communion, we're reminded of a God who cares enough to suffer with. And that while hardship is inevitable, nobody needs to suffer alone.
She's got that shortness of breath again. Worst case scenarios. What if the good guy finally dies? I sit next to her, hold her hand and reassure, remind her it's a TV show. The heroes somehow always end up fine. I know Jamie from the grocery store up on Garden Boulevard. Started out as a cashier. Now she's in the back. She does scheduling and bookkeeping. She finishes her shift, gets the bus and meets me back here. Jamie, when we're sailing off, high above the parking lots, looking off the balcony, well that seems pretty pure to me. I guess we all get by in different ways. Right now I mostly stay up here at Jamie's place. I overestimate, I make mistakes sometimes, owe money to some other guys. Safest if I stay inside. Jamie's place is clean. Her TV's 6 feet wide, 250 channels, coming crisp and clear through satellite. Jamie's husband died in 1999. There was an accident, the claimant paid eventually. She brings me cigarettes, six-packs, chips and sandwiches, newspapers and tattoo magazines. Sailing off, high above the parking lots, looking off the balcony, well that seems pretty pure to me. I guess we all get by in different ways. Right now I mostly stay it safe up here at Jamie's place. I haven't mentioned it to all my stupid tavern friends. I never hear the end of it. They wouldn't leave me alone again. They think I'm only doing this to have somewhere to hang my head. I admit that played into it, but now there's so much more to this. 'Cause Jamie, when we're sailing off, high above the parking lots, looking off the balcony, well that seems pretty pure to me. That seems pretty pure to me. We all get by in different ways. Right now I mostly stay. It's safe up here at Jamie's place. It's safe up here at Jamie's place.
That was the Waiata Rescue Blues by Craig Finn. I hope you liked it. As we were researching this episode on compassion, we came across the Sisters of Compassion in Wellington and thought, well, this seems kind of obvious. And within the order, we came across Sister Margaret-Anne, who has both worked and volunteered within the order and held leadership positions. So I asked her to tell us a bit more about their founder, Suzanne Aubert. Originally from France, she took the name Mary Joseph when she entered her religious order. But as she came to Aotearoa, New Zealand, Mary Joseph was translated to Meri Hohepa in Māori. So Sister Margaret-Anne calls her Mary Joseph, Meri Hohepa, and Suzanne Aubert. She's all the same person. Kia ora, Sister Margaret-Anne. Thank you so much for joining me on Sunday Sanctuary today.
Kia ora, Petra.
Look, it's so exciting. We decided to do this episode on compassion, and we thought, who would know about compassion? And so we started looking around New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand, and we found the Sisters of Compassion and thought, I bet these guys know a little bit about compassion.
Indeed, we do.
So good. So good. We're in the right place.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little taster of how the Sisters of Compassion started here in New Zealand?
Yeah, so the Sisters of Compassion started here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, up in Hiraharama, Jerusalem, on the Wanganui River. It was perhaps an accident, but it happened. Suzanne Aubert, or the Venerable Merihohepa Suzanne Aubert, was in Jerusalem with the Sisters of St. Joseph, and she was there to support them in this new mission. But things didn't work out for a number of reasons. So she stayed, and she invited women who knew her from the Hawke's Bay, and they joined her. And they were at that time members of the Third Order of Mary, which is related to the Marist Fathers.
Okay.
However, when it came to sort of confirm them in that role, they didn't quite fit the Third Order of Mary as known by the Marist in the Pacific area. So they weren't accepted. And so Archbishop Redwood said, well, if they won't have you, you better start your own. So they did, and that was confirmed in 1892, but they had been together since 1883. So it's quite amazing, and the sisters that followed recognised very much, and always have, that Hiraharama is the cradle of our institute. So we're very privileged to belong there and have that relationship over all these years. There are many, many families, many generations that have known the sisters. So that's how we began.
Yeah, I love that. I love the human nature of that. Of well, let's try this, or no, we need to respond to this, or we need to change to this. And there are so many stories, I guess, of the tenacity of your founder. Yeah. And I know we're marking 100 years since Sister Suzanne Aubert's death this coming year. Is it in October?
That's right.
Okay. And I heard that when she joined Bishop Pompelia on a boat from Europe to Aotearoa, New Zealand, she could speak French, and Bishop Pompelia taught her Māori, te reo Māori, but not English. She didn't learn English until she arrived here.
Yes.
I guess that the learning of te reo Māori gives us a small insight into perhaps the focus of her early work here.
Yes, it does. And that was the vision of Bishop Pompelia. He taught his missionaries the te reo on the boat. He wanted the people to understand them, and also the missionaries to understand the people.
Right. What do you think? Like, we're looking at a massive amount of work by your founder, and we obviously can't cover it all here. What would you say was some of the most impactful work that she engaged with through Sisters of Compassion?
So primarily it would have been the work or the care given to children up at Hiraharama. And she was an interesting person, as you said, well, if this doesn't work, let's try this. And so she was primarily in Hiraharama for the education of the Māori children at the time. But people were sending up Pākehā infants, babies on the riverboat up the river because nobody was caring for them. And in that time it was very much a no-no for a woman not to be married and to have children, so sometimes they were just dumped as parcels on the boat and sent up to Mother Mary Joseph at the time, Suzanne Aubert. And so then the sisters were caring for European Pākehā, sickly little infants, as well as teaching in the school. And it became inappropriate for these sickly children to be up in the river. There was no road, or the river was the road. There was only the sisters' healthcare, no doctors. And it was the doctors in Wellington that advised her to bring the children to Wellington. And so that's how Suzanne got to Wellington. And first of all to Buckle Street. In Buckle Street, Wellington, you still see the little brick cottage which was built in 1914. But prior to that, there were wooden houses that the sisters occupied, and the children were there until the home in 1907 was built at Island Bay. So it's curious, it was meeting the need of the time. It wasn't Suzanne's vision to found a congregation. It was, well, the way to be with the people, to teach the Maori people, working with the babies, was to have a congregation. That was the tool at that time.
Do you know what her original motivation was to move to the other side of the world?
Well, it was an interesting time in the 1840s, 1850s. It was post, revolution in France, but France was sending missionaries out everywhere, particularly to the Pacific Islands, Noumea, everywhere. And they wrote back letters, stories. There was a journal. And so she was reading them as a young woman, young teenager. And Pompelia was a good friend of the Aubert family until Suzanne sort of escaped, and Monsieur Aubert was going to kill Pompelia the next time he saw her for taking his daughter away. But she was very much influenced with what was going on in the city of Lyon. Pauline Jericho was a great promoter of the missionaries, like a fundraiser. So it was happening all around her. And so she had this vision from Pompelia's talks, homilies, about this amazing, way of evangelization in her time. And she just wanted to go to the missions. And it happened that the boat landed in Auckland and she was here. Originally, the 4 Frenchwomen were going to go to Sydney, where the Murray's fathers had a primary base there, and were going to take the vows in the Third Order of Mary. But it didn't happen. Pompelia had a different idea, and they landed in Auckland. But it was her background, the fire, the energy that was sort of circling around Lyon at the time. The context, the horopaki is so important, isn't it? Like this would be, I get the sense that in terms of perhaps who Sister Suzanne Aubert Merihohepa was somebody who had a sense of adventure, had a sense of incredible energy and can-do, and a sense of purpose. She wanted to make a difference. She wanted to work. She wanted to live and see the world and do good. That's right. And that came from her mother and her maternal grandmother. Okay. From a little girl to do good. So like Suzanne, she knew about soup kitchens because they were in Lyon. She knew about creches for children because that was all happening in her growing up years. And initially she wanted to join the Sisters of Charity. She did nurse with them, she trained with them, she supported them as a volunteer during the Crimean War. She had lots of experiences, but they wouldn't accept her because through a childhood accident, a cast in her eye had remained, and the sisters said, well, people are sick enough, they need to be able to not see disfigurement, they need to at least, isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
And so then her eye, she still had the missionary vision, and so that's what happened. But if you look at that, she suffered as a wee child from the accident. They thought she was going to die. She had splints on her arms and legs until she was 5, and she wasn't able to read until she was 9, and that's when she first started going to school. But she was highly intelligent and took everything in, just quite extraordinary. But then she knew what it was like to, well, she used the word in French, monster, but it means freak. You know, people would see her in the street or playing in the garden, and they'd run away because they were frightened of her. So she deeply knew how people didn't respond well to people with disfigurements, children who were disabled. And so, you know, she had disabled children and young adults as part of her outreach. She just understood deeply because of her life experience. I mean, she could think when she came to Wellington and saw the poverty, and particularly men at that time were on the streets looking for work. And she said, well, the most logical thing to do is set up a soup kitchen. Because of her background, it was logical. She knew what to do. And so that's what she did. Yeah.
And it sounds like, even though there was a sense of resource perhaps in her childhood and that she did get to go to school and, you know, her parents were obviously resourced in some ways, that perhaps that's where a deep sense of compassion. Yes,
she was, it was a wealthy family for those times. And she did go to boarding school, a Benedictine school. And so she learnt, she studied, she wasn't going to be seen as the word she used, as a dunce in the class. And so like her grandmother was amazing. So her older brother and herself, often, you know, beggars or poor people would knock at the door. And the children, Suzanne, would be dressed in lovely little frocks. And she'd make them go to the door with offering something to eat, but she'd make them curtsy to the person on the other side, the beggar, because she said they represent Christ or Jesus, you know? And so from a young age, she knew the dignity of the human person, you know, that every person has dignity, needs to be respected, has been created by God, you know. She knew, and that's how she approached people of, you know, all strata of life. She approached everybody with respect, but she, you know, she would give a bit of gripe or
she wasn't a pushover.
Yeah, she wouldn't sort of take no nonsense. She wasn't airy-fairy or say, she did speak back.
Wow, that's
required.
Yes, I hear you. She was a multifaceted, you know, unique and vibrant character. I love even that story that you've just told calls back to a quote that kind of began our exploration of compassion by Father Gregory Boyle. Yeah. And his quote was, "Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded, so the wealthy person and the beggar. It's a covenant between equals." That idea that the value and worth of every single soul, every single person, and how, you know, that idea of if we have plenty, share it with others and receive if we have need is a relation. It's like a covenant relationship, isn't it, between equals? Yeah. I will give you what I have and I will receive with gratitude what you have to give.
Exactly. And I was very interested in that quote too. And I thought, it's a relationship. It's a covenant. It's, you know, like marriage is a covenant. It's a commitment. And so it's, she was extraordinary, and you learn through life, like I learned through life. So I've been thinking about this. Yeah. And so yesterday I was at a breakfast service at the soup kitchen, and I thought, wow, a fella came, it was a terrible day, cold, and everyone was coming in wet, cold and hungry, and This chappie came in grumpy. Okay. Then he came back for more soup. He really appreciated it, and he said, "Oh, that was good soup." And then with the most beautiful smile he gave me, he said, "Thank you." And I thought, this is covenant. This is relationship. He received lovely hot soup, cold morning, and he felt nourished. That then he came back and gave back to me his gratitude. And I thought, that's it. It's a two-way relationship. I mean, I could have said, "Oh, you come back, you grumpy old fella."
You could have.
But I sort of said, "No," I said, let me pour you another cup of soup. It smells good. And so I was thinking about that quote of, and I thought, yeah, that's what it is. And that's what it's been through my life, is that you serve one or support someone or help them. It may not be in the moment that I receive something, but I have received so much over the years from people that have become friends, that have either been in our care as children, or I've taught, or whatever. And I thought, it's so true. And in thinking about that quote, I have this very sort of homemade book, and it's called the Thoughts of the Day by Suzanne Obeah. It's just a little book like that.
Yeah.
And so it's got each month and each date, each day. And this one, I thought, was just so key in this covenant relationship. And it was for the 4th of July, which is an interesting date in other fields. And it says, "The expression of kindness opens to hope the heart of those who suffer." Oh. And I thought, wow, where did you get that one from, Susan? It's just the expression of kindness opens to hope the hearts of those who suffer. And I thought, it's like, it's like if you are kind to somebody, it's like a key. It invites a response. It invites a response. And we see that in a lot of people when people have been kind. Jacinda Ardern, for example, she kept saying, "Let us be kind." And I kept saying, I wonder if she's read Suzanne Obeah. Because, Suzanne has a lot of reference to gratitude and to kindness.
If we're honest, if we're humble, we know and recognise that we all suffer.
Yeah,
we suffer in different ways at different times, but that kindness would and could and can be a key to having hope to all of us. And knowing that, how do we, what do you see? Do you have thoughts about what compassion means in our lives and communities, or how we could increase it?
Yeah. So compassion is seeing the goodness in everyone and in everything. It's seeing the goodness, the creative spark. There's a creative spark in each of us. And if I'm seeing someone and I think, oh, they need a little bit of engagement, I'm recognising the spark of the essence of life in them. And if I offer it without attachments, without ego, but just because they are another human being, they will recognise, maybe not immediately, but they'll recognise the spark in me. And there's a connection. There's sort of a connection of energy. And then the relationship can develop. And it can be the converse, which is not compassion, in that the person that I sort of might be helping or recognising, they just need a little bit of tender loving care. They go, get away, you silly old fish, or something like that. And it's, and I mean, it was a different approach for Suzanne Aubert in the sense that one day she was out collecting in the streets and with the wicker basket, and she had other sisters with her. And it was a butcher who said, "Don't you come here collecting," because there was a huge lot of prejudice between Christian denominations in the early times. And he was quite rude to her. And she just sort of made a little reverent bow and just said thank you and walked on. She didn't rebuffle him. She just accepted what he offered and walked on. And in her way, she was probably praying to the guardian angels or, for him. But so there was a spark, but it was a negative spark, but the engagement didn't continue. So it's knowing, compassion is knowing when to be there, when to offer, because it can be the converse. Compassion could be smothering. I don't need your help at this time. And so it's something you, through life, you live and you discern. And Suzanne was like that too, just pausing before making the next move.
And how incredible that the work that she started continues, that you've joined, and it will continue beyond you, and that it's the soup kitchen is still going, and there's a retreat centre, and
we've got compassion housing, which is a new initiative, but it's a good one. Yeah.
And compassion housing is for the other end of life, is it for kaumatua, for people who are in their wisdom years, elders of our culture and society? Yeah.
No, it's a great venture, and our sisters who have the good fortune to be in touch with the tenants of compassion housing, there's a wonderful engagement between the sisters and the tenants. And also, like today, we have many, many volunteers, and they get the engagement too. It's wonderful. That whole covenant thing from that original quote that you shared, it's so true. It's equals.
Sister Margaret-Anne, it has been, as I expected, such a delight to hang out with you just for this period of time, and I think I could do it all day. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the work that you're part of, the work that you support, that you love and cherish, the stories that you tell. It's a legacy, but it's alive. I love that the covenant relationship between equals of compassion, of kindness, of tender love and care continues. And even though it finds new avenues and it wends like a river through the times, that it continues. So thank you so much for your time today, and also for your order for the Sisters of Compassion. It's so marvellous. I might even knock on the door one day when I come down to Wellington. It would be lovely to meet you in person.
We've got lots to share.
Yay.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, I think I love Sister Margaret-Anne. Just the wairua is so good. I think she walks the talk, and I loved listening to her talk.
Here's a Sunday Sanctuary sacred text.
Our sacred text for today is from the end of Claire Keegan's novel, Small Things Like These. It's set in 1980s Ireland. Bill Furlong supplies coal to the local mother and baby home, where more than once he's found the same girl locked in the coal shed. This section of the book picks up after Bill decides to take the girl back to his family for Christmas, instead of handing her, once again, back to the nuns that run the home. As they were nearing the centre of town and the Christmas lights, a part of him considered backing off and taking the long way home. But he braved it out and carried on, following the path he ordinarily would have taken. A change, it seemed, was coming over the girl, and soon she had to stop and vomited on the street. "Good girl," Furlong encouraged her. "Get it all up. Get that much out of you." In the square, she paused to rest at the lighted manger and stood in a type of trance, looking in. Furlong looked in too, at Joseph's bright robes, the kneeling virgin, the sheep. Someone, since he'd last seen it, had placed the figures of the wise men and the baby Jesus there, but it was the donkey that held the girl's attention, and she reached out to stroke and push the snow off his ear. "Isn't he lovely?" she said. "We've not far to go now," Furlong assured. "We're almost home." As they carried on along and met more people Furlong did and did not know, he found himself asking, was there any point in being alive without helping one another? Was it possible to carry on along through all the years, the decades, through an entire life, without once being brave enough to go against what was there, and yet call yourself a Christian and face yourself in the mirror? How light and tall he almost felt, walking along with this girl at his side, and some fresh, new, unrecognisable joy in his heart. Was it possible that the best bit of him was shining forth and surfacing? Some part of him, whatever it could be called, was there any name for it, was going wild, he knew. The fact was that he would pay for it, but never once in his whole and unremarkable life had he known a happiness akin to this, not even when his infant girls were first placed in his arms and he had heard their healthy, obstinate cries. The worst was yet to come, he knew. Already he could feel a world of trouble waiting for him behind the next door. But the worst that could have happened was also already behind him. The thing not done, which could have been, which he would have had to live with for the rest of his life. Whatever suffering he was now to meet was a long way from what the girl at his side had already endured, and might yet surpass. Climbing the street towards his own front door, with the barefooted girl and the box of shoes, his fear more than outweighed every other feeling, but in his foolish heart, he not only hoped, but legitimately believed that they would manage. We're going to end with Matin, a section of morning prayer by poet, author, philosopher, priest, John O'Donoghue. This is verse 2. I arise today in the name of silence, womb of the world, in the name of stillness, home of belonging, in the name of solitude, of the soul and the earth. I arise today. Blessed by all things, wings of breath, delight of eyes, wonder of whisper, intimacy of touch, eternity of soul, urgency of thought, miracle of health, embrace of God. May I live this day compassionate of heart, clear of word, gracious in awareness, courageous in thought, generous in love.